I'm Peter Loshak. This is our opening lines preview with John Ryan, SBR contributor John Ryan from johnryansports.com. We're actually doing this on Tuesday afternoon, so they're not quite openers, but they're sort of midweek lines at this point. We're still going to take a look at them. We're looking at NFL Week 7 and college football Week 8. John, thanks so much for being here again.
Thanks for having me, Peter. Always enjoy it.
All right, so let's look at the college lines. You know, the story of the year now is that it's been a terrible year to be a bookie. It's a player's year. You know, some people have been speculating that the books are getting killed in general this year, and it is, you know, kind of true. I'm hearing that from people around the office, from bookies that I've been talking to. And a big part of the reason, at least in college football, is like the top 5 teams, the top 5 rated teams have all covered the spread almost every week. Boise State, Stanford, LSU, Alabama. All those teams, they're all like double-digit road favorites, 30-point home favorites, covering every week. This week, we got it all happening again. What do you think about it? You have anything to say about all that?
Yeah, it's kind of surprising. I think it's happened in history several times, though. It's not very common. Sometimes it happens in the middle of a season. And also there's periods of time where dogs cover.
Yeah,
but
sure.
Clearly, this is a unique situation. I don't think we're quite at the top. Meaning that if I'm comparing this to the stock market, we're not quite at the peak. I think we got another week or two.
Mm-hmm.
But then I think there's going to be some really good opportunities to buy the dog.
To fade. All right. Well, and, so maybe it's a little bit of variance. Maybe the lines haven't been high enough. But, you know, let's look over the lines this week. LSU minus 22.5 against Auburn. Alabama minus 29.5 against Tennessee. You know, Stanford minus 20.5 against Washington. Boise State minus 31 against Air Force. What do you think of any of those lines? Do you think any of them are worth touching?
Immediately, my gut reaction is to take the dog because a lot of times, I mean, every single line you said, it just seems like it's too many points.
Right.
With that said, I think we need another week yet, and hopefully the favorites will do the same thing they've been doing. Then we'll get obscenely inflated lines, and then that's when we'll have the opportunity to really load up on the dogs. But we're pretty close.
Yeah, I mean, these are SEC teams. You know what I mean? It's like you're having spreads that are like when you have an SEC team against like a MAC team or something. It's approaching that level. But I guess it's we'll see what Doc has to say and the experts have to say in the rest of the week. But I don't know. I'm not touching these lines personally. There are some interesting lines, though. One of them actually reminds me. Did you notice the great prediction I made on Temple in last week's video, John?
I sure did.
Yeah, let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at that. What about Temple and Buffalo? I mean, Temple, like when they win big, don't they? The score is usually other teams 0, Temple whatever. I mean, they've shut out better teams than Buffalo. You know, I mean, how many times do we have to see this? Final score: Buffalo 0, Temple more than 21. Not too shabby, huh? Not too shabby.
It was very good.
Yeah, and a guy, Aggie Sean, an SBR poster, Aggie Sean, who came to the bash, gave me some kudos for that. He gave me a shout out saying he tailed it. But you know, I meant it as sort of a jokey thing that Temple gets these shutouts over these mid-range MAC teams. But I don't think that's fluky, and they did get one. And here this week, you know, minus 13 against Bowling Green. The road doesn't seem to matter at all for Temple. I'm thinking we might see the same kind of thing, that Bowling Green's going to have a hard time scoring. Temple's going to have a relatively easy time covering what would at first glance appear to be maybe a big spread of 13. What do you think?
I think Temple's to play. I think Temple's probably one of the few winning record teams left in the country that is not getting insanely overvalued.
Yeah. What do you think about a bunch of people have mentioned the Penn State Northwestern game. Northwestern at home getting 4 points against Penn State. Some people saying that Northwestern, you know, Penn State's obviously been a bit of an overvalued team, a little bit of a down year. I'm not sure if I'm loving Northwestern as much as a lot of other people seem to be, but you know, it's definitely tempting. What do you make of that game?
I think Penn State is to play.
Really?
Yeah,
okay.
I think Penn State's to play here. It might be one that I'll do. I just don't trust the Northwestern team.
You think the public will come in on Northwestern, or you think it'll go down to 3 or 2.5?
I do.
Yeah.
I think the public is going to take Northwestern. That's what I'm seeing the first 2 days of the week here is pretty steady bets being done by the public on Northwestern, which, as you know, makes me like Penn State even more.
Yeah. What do you make of the Utah-California game? Now, I admit I kind of was looking to fade Utah last week against Pittsburgh. I got burned a little bit, you know, whatever. You know, to win some, you lose some. But here, California, you know, they lost to USC, you know, big loss. But they are usually good at home when they're not playing USC. But what do you think, Cal minus 3? You think that might be enticing? It opened at 2.5.
I like Cal.
Yeah.
I think they're going to come back and redeem themselves from last week. Obviously, they played very poorly against Southern Cal, and Southern Cal just basically wore them down.
Yeah.
It wasn't. The score was not indicative of really what was going on. But nevertheless, it was a disheartening loss for Cal. But I think, young men like college athletes have a tendency to have short memories, and they come back and they play well.
Yeah, I like it. I like it too. I like the young men of Cal to have a short memory and maybe get a win here. I mean, three's not that much, and I think that I also don't think this line will move though. I think people will be a little bit wary of taking Cal. Then what do you make of the USC Notre Dame line? I'm looking at this thinking 8.5. That's kind of a lot of points. I mean, Notre Dame is the kind of team that when they're playing a quality program like USC, even if they do get a big lead, they tend to let teams back into it. I see this one going down to the end, and I also see it probably going down to maybe about 7 by closing. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Surprisingly, the flows here are coming in on Notre Dame.
That's not that surprising. Yeah, I mean,
which is kind of shocking to me.
Is it?
But I think laying this many points with a Notre Dame team and knowing that Southern Cal has this kind of athleticism on it, which I think is better than what Notre Dame has, it's got my head shaking. I'm wondering why I'm seeing lines going up on Notre Dame as high as 8.
Yeah.
I just like Southern Cal. I like their defense.
I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a reverse line movement on this one, where
points.
like money came in on Notre Dame and the line moved in USC's favor. All right, let's just wrap up the college football Week 8 opening lines preview. Are there any other lines that caught your eye as interesting that we haven't talked about?
Yeah, the one in the Pac-12, Washington State, Oregon State. Washington State, as we know, got manhandled last week, and I think Washington State's a play here. They're only -3 against Oregon State. They're playing at home. As I mentioned, it seems like our key word today is redemption from really poor losses the week before. And being that this is a conference game, I think Washington State is an interesting play here at -3.
Yeah, well, I'll look into that because I'm also looking for redemption from losses